Hey, too, this is Jaden Comanche, Team Shadow Strike, and I am bringing you an updated 5th Omni deck profile. This is the latest up-to-date version that I've been messing around with. It's still by far probably my favorite deck to play because it was the deck that got me into Buddy Fight. Actually, it was Drum, but then I decided to play the best deck possibly that you could play with Drum, and that led me to 5th Omni. But I will say there is... Some people might be asking if I'm going to be building Thunder Empire. The answer to that question is yes. I actually have the deck like next to almost being done. It's I had to order the last 2 secret packs that I needed from Singapore because the only person in the States wanted like $100 for bots, and that's just not going to happen. And they were willing to be a whole lot more reasonable and sold me 2 of them for $50 because each of the secret packs are only like $30, considering in every box you are guaranteed at least one of them. So they, I've been tracking the shipping, and they just left Los Angeles port today, and like around 8 in the morning. So I'm hopeful that they'll be in by tomorrow or Thursday. So, and I'm recording this on a Tuesday. So as soon as I get those and I add the new cards to the deck and I fix it up a little bit, it will be up as well. And I will say that Thunder Empire, my first thoughts, the deck is amazing. But I'll get more into everything there, obviously, in my bots deck profile. But anyway, we're going to go and talk about 5th Omni. So here we go. So we'll start here with the main deck, and then we'll see what Mimikyu's hiding in the side deck. So obviously still the buddy for this deck is 5th Omni Cavalry Dragon Merrick SD. Merrick SD is the go-to buddy for this deck because he is just the best card, possible. I'm pretty sure I've explained him at least a couple of times, but I'll cover him one more time when I get to him in the deck. So first we're starting with our size 3s. And first we have our 4 copies of 5th Omni Super Cavalry Dragon Hellfire Sword Doble. I want to give a shout out to someone on eBay. I can't remember his name, so I guess the shout-out's pointless, but I have been looking for foils of this card forever, and he had 4 of them and was willing to deal them for a very reasonable price. Thank you very much, man. I really, really, really wanted foils of this card. I want to hollow out this entire deck, believe it or not, but this size 3 monster is just an absolute monster. He carries stats of 8,000 power, 2 critical, and 5k defense. He has a 2-gauge call cost, and when he enters play, you put the top card of your deck into his soul. So it does take 2 method, 2 weight. You have to basically kill him twice in some way. Whenever you would take damage, you get to take the top card of your deck and put it into your gauge, and then you get to take 1 card out of your opponent's gauge and put it in the drop zone. And he also has double attack and soul guard. So 8,000 power, so he can still get through some pretty big walls. Mainly, he can still get through a Thora for Prism Dragons. My friend and teammate Sam is building Prism Dragons, and when he gets that deck done, I will do my best to get a deck profile on that. But you have to, taking in Prism Dragons into account, he can still run into a Thora. So, and he has double attack, which is really nice. So he is easily the one of the best cards in this deck. Next, we also have a new size 3 friend to add to our ranks, and that is, at the moment, I'm playing 3 copies of 5th Omni Super Cavalry Dragon Aurora Spiral Iridio. So Iridio is absolutely amazing. He came out in Triple D BT04. His stats is 7,000 power, 2 crits, and 4k defense. This card cannot be called to the center. Pay 2 gauge and put a card with 5th Omni and its card name from your drop zone into this card's soul. When you are dealt damage, you gain 2 life, and for this turn, this card gets Penetrate, and this ability can only be activated once per turn. And it has double attack and soul guard. So you can use many combos that this deck can produce to basically cast your cards that you have to cast to deal. You have to deal damage to yourself in order to cast, and you actually are going to be gaining a life instead of losing a life. And with other cards on your field, like your 5th Omni Dragon Sword, Emperor Fang, and other things that are played in this deck, it's going to trigger multiple things. Plus, it has Penetrate, which is also really good to help deal with walls. And then for the last size 3s, I'm playing 2 copies of 5th Omni Super Cavalry Dragon Magical Deity Blade Mizaru. I have contemplated cutting one of this and putting in a 4th Iridio because Iridio puts in so much work. But I also really like this guy. He is a size 3 monster, obviously, with 7,000 power, 3 crits, and 5 defense. He cannot be called to the center, as is most cards in this deck, since it's an open center deck. Call cost is pay 1 gauge and put a card with 5th Omni in this card's soul from your drop zone. When you are dealt damage, draw a card. This ability activates once per turn. He also has Soul Guard and Counter Attack. So they're going to have to find another means to at least get rid of his soul before they attack him, because if he has a card in his soul and they attack him, he'll survive with Soul Guard and then he'll counter attack. So he can be a little tricky to get rid of for some decks, and also, yeah, he helps you draw cards, which, you know, drawing cards is never a bad thing. So that is our size 3s. Our size 2s. Our Buddy Monster, 4 copies. 5th Omni Cavalry Dragon Merrick SD. Stats of 5,000 power, 2 crits, and 1k defense. This card cannot be called to the center. If you have an original size 2 or greater Armor Dragon on your field, the size of this card on your field is reduced by 2, so he becomes a size 0. And his ability is Counter. Choose an Armor Dragon on your field for this turn. It gets plus 1,000 power and plus 1,000 defense and the Penetrate ability, and you take 1 damage. And this also allows you to trigger your effects on your opponent's turn, which can really disrupt their plays. And he can sit next to any of your size 3s, so he can sit next to this guy and eat their gauge away while giving you gauge. He can use this to gain you life, and he can use this to help you draw a card, and he increases all their defenses by 1,000 power, so it even makes them a little harder to get over, which, you know, sometimes that 1,000 power can, you know, be the difference maker. So, really, really good card. And then I'm playing 3 copies of 5th Omni Dragon Lord Drum. Since my last deck profile, I did cut out one of my drums. It's not because I do not like this card anymore. This is still my favorite card in the game, and that'll never change. It's just because I build all my decks based on meta, since I'm a competitive player. Prism Dragons are a thing, and Drum can't affect a Thora. So I only play 3 of him. It's just a tech choice, and I think it's a smart one because you really don't want to see this in the early game. You'd rather see one of your size 3s, and when you do, I still see Drum fairly frequently, and I still win games because of this card, because he is absolutely stupid. But anyway, just for fun's sake, I'll read him. This card cannot be called to the center. Pay 1 gauge and put the top card of your deck into this card's soul is his call cost. And when you are dealt damage, if your life is 6 or less, destroy a monster on your opponent's field, and it is not once per turn. He is the only 5th Omni monster whose effect is not limited to once a turn. So you can activate this thing multiple times and just wipe your opponent's board. So he is still very, very relevant in this format. And he is still an amazing card. I just think you don't need 4 copies of him. And so far, this updated build has been testing very, very, very well. So that is our size 2s. We don't play any size 1s, but we do play 4 size 0s. I play 2 copies of Flare Fang SD. It is a size 0 with 2,000 power, 1 crit, and 1k defense. He cannot be called to the center. If your opponent does not have a monster in the center, this thing gets 3,000 power, so he's a 5,000k attacker as a size 0, which is really good. And I play him for his other skill. It's during your turn when a monster on your opponent's field is destroyed, draw a card. This ability activates once per turn. He is a Sun Dragon technically, but he can be, he is not restricted to Sun Dragons, and he's a very, very good card. Then I play 1 copy of Inverse 7th Omni Earth Lord Twilight Count. So this is a Legend World card, but since how it's an Omni Lord, we are allowed to play 1 copy. His ability. Well, first, his stats are 4,000 power, 1 crit, 1k defense. His ability is, when you are dealt damage, you gain 1 life and deal 1 damage to your opponent. This ability activates once per turn. So you can use this to gain some life back and also burn your opponent a little bit. And then I play 1 copy of 5th Omni Cavalry Dragon Drunken Sword Show. Size 0 with 4,000 power, 2 crits, and 3 defense. The main reason he is in here in case you need a way to kick off your effects, because when he attacks, you either have to kill him instantly, or you take 1 damage. But if you have, say, your sword equipped, you can take that damage and then you'll just gain that life back, which will then trigger all your skills. So he's in here mainly just as a 1 tech of, just to be that another way to kick off your skills. Even though there are literally many ways in this deck to do that, he's just in there as just another option. 4 copies of 5th Omni Dragon Sword Emperor Fang. Its equip cost is pay a gauge and take 1 damage. And then, so if you already have a 5th Omni monster out, by equipping this, you'll then kick their skill as well. If you are dealt damage other than by an attack, you gain 1 life. So, really, really good card. Basically gets a lot of our skills off for free. And then we play 2 copies of Sunfist Ball Guard. Also, this is another Sun Dragon card. You might be questioning why we play this. This was actually a tip I got from another 5th Omni player the last time I was at Springfest, and he told me about this card. And first, just let me read it real quick. Pay 1 gauge and pay 1 life. This card on the field cannot be destroyed by effects by your opponent's cards. That right there is the reason that we play it. It is 6,000 power, 2 crit. Its other ability can only protect Sun Dragons. Now, we do technically play 1 Sun Dragon in this deck, so technically you could pay a gauge and sacrifice this to preserve your Flare Fang SD if you wanted. I have not been put in that situation yet, but it is there, I guess, if you find the opportunity to do it, if, say, then you draw into this. But it's really good for certain matchups that can pop weapons, like Magic World, for instance. So once it's equipped, they can't get rid of it. Because unfortunately, the Emperor Fang Sword does not have that luxury. But it is a nice option to have against certain decks. Next, we are getting into spells. We got our standard 4 green and 4 blue Dragon's Shield to gain life and gauge. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said about these cards. If you've been playing Buddy Fight, you know what they do. Next, we play 4 copies of Drago Wisdom Knowledge of the 5th Omni. For the longest time, I was only playing 3 copies of this card and really decided that 4 was needed. This is just too good of a card. You can only cast this card if you have a card with 5th Omni and its card name on your field. Very easy to make happen. Cast cost, take a damage, and then you get to put the top card of your deck into the gauge and draw a card. So it's basically a gauge and draw, but it also deals you a damage, so it'll kick off your skills for you. So it is really good for that. Next, we play 3 copies of Dragon Spell Hiding Bomber. This is a dual world, Dragon World and Magic World dual world card. Very, very good. You may only cast this card during your opponent's turn. Cast cost, pay 1 gauge. Return a monster with 5,000 or less defense to its owner's hand, or destroy it. So it's a magical goodbye with also a Pillar of Fire effect, kind of. So really, really good card. You can use this to recycle your size 3s to your hands if they've lost their soul and they're fixing to be killed, or drum, or any of your monster for that matter. I think it can save every monster in the deck. Yeah, every monster in this deck we play has 5,000 or less defense, so you can use this to protect your monsters, or you can use it to pop off one of theirs. So it's just a very good dual versatile card. And then we play 3 copies of Drago Desperate. This is still one of the best cards in 5th Omni, just because it can just really come in clutch. Its cast cost is pay a gauge and take 1 damage. Counter, rest a size 2 or less monster or item on your opponent's field. So it can stop the dragon forces, it can stop big weapons, and it can rest Hero World cards that are equipped as items. and it can rest monsters on the field. So there's just this can be used against. This can be used in against. This can be used in pretty much any matchup. So, and then we play 3 copies of Drago Guts. Cast cost, take a damage, and then counter, you gain 3 life. So you can just use this to kick off your skills again. Keep in mind, if you use this with Drum, the magic number that you have to use it at and get Drum's skill off is 4, because you're at 4, you cast this, you go to 3, and then you go back to 6, and then Drum's skill activates and checks for life to activate, and it'll be at 6, and then it pops. So just be aware of that. So. And you can use this also with all your other cards, and they'll activate no matter what. You can use it with Hellfire Double, you can use it with Spiral, you can use it with Mizaru. It's a very, very good card. And then for our impact, we are playing 3 copies of Thunder Lance X Tempest Buster. Gargantua Punisher, it was a lot of fun, and we thank you for your service, but this is the new go-to impact in Dragon World, and probably the best impact in the game. It's just an amazing, amazing card. And the fact that this is not Thunder Empire specific is amazing. You may only cast this card if your opponent's life is at 5 or less. Your cards have attacked 3 or more times during this turn, and neither you nor your opponent have a monster in the center. Link attacks only count as 1 attack. Keep in mind, cast cost, pay 3 gauge, deal 5 damage to your opponent. This card cannot be nullified, the damage cannot be reduced, and your opponent's life, if your opponent's life would become 0, it cannot be changed by your opponent's cards, so they cannot be revived. So if their life were to hit 0, they can't use the Dragon Force from Darkness Dragon World to revive, they can't use Dragon Dry, they can't use anything that would give them life to stay in the game. This is Gargantua Punisher, but a lot better. It's 1 less gauge cost. It's real easy to kick off with all the double attack units we have in this deck. It deals 1 more damage, and it prevents your opponent from reviving. So really, really good. 2 of these are secrets. My other four secrets are in my Thunder Empire deck, but with the 2 secret packs that I got coming, I'll be getting 2 more secrets, so I'll have a play set of secrets for both decks. And also, if you do want secret rares of this card, I ordered 2 secret rares of Tempest Buster for $7, so they're really not that much. Like I said, the secret packs for Thunder Empire, the Dragon Dry, and the Prisms, they aren't that much. They're only like 25, 30 a piece. But anywho, 3 copies of this, real easy to get off, and makes our OTKs much more easy. So that is our main deck. Now we're going to see what Mimikyu has for us in our sideboard. Yes, that's Mimikyu. He's adorable. 3 copies of Remove. This is a very good card. It is probably going to see a lot more play now, especially with Prisms, because it is an easy way to empty a Thora's Soul. Pay 1 gauge, take 2 souls from any card on the field, and send them to the drop zone. It is a remove card, so when they say this card cannot be destroyed by effects, that does not work. So there is that. So very good card. I would definitely try and pick these up. I'm personally hoarding this card. And then also 2 Shine Storm, also for Prism Dragons, can be used in dual Jaeger matchups outside the one that can't have his soul removed. Basically for Wall in general. You pay 2 gauge, and then you can take a soul from any card on the field, but if that card is a monster in the center, it empties all the soul. So very, very, very good. Next, 2 copies of Double Loss. This is a Dragon World and Katana World Dual World card. You may only cast this card when a monster on your field is destroyed. Cast cost, pay 1 gauge, put a soul from a monster on your opponent's field into the drop zone, and destroy that card. So this can be used in a lot of matchups. Basically anything that has a 1-card soul. If a monster on your field is destroyed, you can cast this. It removes a soul from that monster and then kills that monster. So it can get rid of those cards. Very, very good card. 2 copies of Barbed Wire, just another way to rest dragon forces and items. It's just a good sideboard card all around. And then I also want my 4th Drago Desperate. You can use this, you can side this in if you're going against Hero World, or you just want to be able to stun your opponent more. So, no monsters in the side, all spells, but in all the testing I've done, this sideboard has been what's worked for me best. So, that's what Mimikyu holds onto for us. So, anyway, guys, that is my 5th Omni deck profile and how I've been playing it, and it's been doing exceedingly well. Thunderlance in this deck is really, really stupid because dealing 5 damage to your opponent and attacking 3 times is not hard at all. I still love this deck. It is my favorite deck to play, and I just really, 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 really still love this deck. It is, in my opinion, still one of the top decks out there, easily one of the top 5. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. If you have any comments or suggestions, I'm always looking for suggestions because, you know, if you have a suggestion for the deck, I always like to hear your guys' thoughts. So anyway, make sure you thumbs up this video for me, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and share your thoughts below, and I will see you next time.